Are you familiar with FBI Special Agent Kyle Seraphin?
I'm familiar with the name.
Is that yes?
I'm familiar with the name. I'm familiar with the name. I'm familiar with the name.
Joining me now is a frequent guest of the show, former FBI Special Agent, whistleblower as well, Kyle Seraphin.
Let's bring in Kyle Seraphin. He's the FBI whistleblower who helped expose government censorship of our First Amendment rights.
Now, we only have this memo because a recently suspended FBI agent called Kyle Seraphin brought it to the public, and we're grateful that he did. Kyle, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
He's the host of something that strangely is called The Kyle Seraphin Show. Follow him on Twitter. I'm Sebastian Gorka. I'll call you later. We'll talk guns. We'll talk optics.
Perfect, man. God bless you, brother. Thank you for standing up for the truth, man. Thank you for coming on.
Thanks. Well, so Kyle, thank you so much for joining us. Great chatting with you.
Kyle Seraphin, thank you.
Kyle Seraphin, I can't thank you enough for speaking out. I knew you guys were out there, and I knew it was just a matter of time, but you got a lot of guts putting your face and your name to this. You're doing a service on behalf of the American people, and from the bottom of my cracked and broken heart sometimes, thank you very much.
Take a look behind the curtain with a real whistleblower and American patriot. Prepare to embrace the uncomfortable truth because this program has no time for comforting lies. Here is civil liberties enthusiast, Second Amendment defender, and recovering FBI agent Kyle Seraphin.
Hello, my friends. Welcome to the Kyle Seraphin Show. Today is Friday. It's November the 3rd, and we are back streaming live from Liberty Hill, Texas, here on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. If you are watching us on YouTube, this is your 2-minute warning. If you're watching on YouTube, I know there's nobody on Facebook, but we put it out there anyway. If you're watching on Twitter, we may actually even just go only to Rumble. So rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. I got to talk to the founder of Rumble, the CEO of Rumble, Chris Pavlovich, for a few minutes when I was at Mar-a-Lago. That's also weird. We just did that day before yesterday, and he told me that they had a new release for Rumble. If you have not updated your iPhone, there is a new release for the Rumble app to make it more user-friendly. I mentioned to him that my wife is one of the 10 people that watch us on YouTube, and he was like, oh, why is that? Like, what does she like about it? So we had this kind of little small chat. Very user-friendly kind of guy, and a guy who wants to make sure that this product goes strongly. We are broadcasting today without producer Ryan. He is closing on a house, so we are running this, and I see an awful lot of new names and faces in the chat. I guess I just picture your faces. If you guys don't know that, when I see your names running across the chat, I just imagine that there is someone there and that I know that person, because I know a lot of you guys feel the same way when you meet up with us. Okay, so we're going to be bringing on GOB Actual, Garret O'Boyle, instead of Steve Friend. We're going to be talking about the week. And today's kind of topic, in kind of a very strange week for us, is the difference between perception and reality, and maybe the difference between expectation and realization, which we all kind of do this over and over again on a regular basis. It's the source of some of the happiness that you will find, but it's also a source of some of the sadness you get because you think, man, that just did not live up to it. We're going to talk about Mar-a-Lago in that case, some of the celebs that we ran into. Neither of us are very good at knowing that you're supposed to do selfies with people and then go, look, I know this person, tag on whatever the social media thing is. I'm not that kind of guy. So there's some pictures of me with people that I guess they were able to document. Everybody knew who we were, or a lot of people did. So that's pretty strange. Before we do that, I want to say thanks to my friends over at Catholic Vote. I'm not pulling it up because for some reason it looks very fuzzy on this particular streaming software. But Catholic Vote, go to catholicvote.org if you want to get the loop. I just checked out the loop today, and one of the articles in there that I thought was most fascinating, I'm going to give you a quick little brief on it. There is an administration policy that would push abortions on migrant girls. We kind of all know that's going on, some of the evil things that are happening at our southern border, and abusing women and children is right in line with what this administration has done. They've done some really awful things out there, and this particular policy would actually incentivize and fund abortions, which seems like it should be outside of federal law. But they just keep doing these little end around. They keep scooting around what they're allowed to do and what they're not allowed to do. And unfortunately, it results in the death of babies. Now, these women are being abused all the way up from wherever they come from, a lot coming from Panama and making it up to our southern border. It's a horrific, catastrophic experience, I think, for folks that are involved in this. And unfortunately, this administration is not making any better. So check out The Loop. Go to CatholicVote.org. Just plug in your email if you want to get it. I've had many of you reach out to me on social media and let me know that it is really your favorite sort of quick little update. It's part of your data dump as you start your day. If you're getting podcast information, you're getting it long form. But if you want quick bullet points, short stories, and you can click on what you're interested in, The Loop from Catholic Vote at CatholicVote.org. You don't have to be Catholic. You really don't. There's plenty of people out there that have been telling me, hey, I'm not Catholic, but it's really good stuff. It's like, yeah, it's not telling you how many candles need to be on the Catholic Church's altar. That's not what they're about. They're about informing you and making you better armed. All right. So before we do anything further, let's go ahead and bring on my man, my buddy, my partner in crime here. There is GOB Actual. Hey, buddy. How you doing?
Hey, good. Good to
morning.
see you again. I just saw you yesterday.
Yeah. How tired are you from that trip? Because that was pretty exhausting.
Yeah, I'm tired. I'm worn out. I told Heidi, I was like, man, I'm beat. And she's like, well, you're almost 40. What do you expect when you when you revel with millionaires for a night?
It's so strange. So who are some of the faces that you recognize? We went to Mar-a-Lago. We'll kind of give the expectation versus the perception and reality in just a second here. But some of the people that you thought were kind of fun to see.
The biggest one was probably Cash Patel because he bought and paid for me with a $5,000 check at Christmas time last year. So that
You're
was
being
fun.
facetious for all of our friends on the FBI security division that are like, aha, we got him.
Other than that, it was cool to meet like some people who've had me on, like Roger Stone. That was kind of cool. He had no idea who I was. He's like, who are you again? And I'm like, and I told him, and he's like, oh yeah, you were great. His wife, super sweet. I chatted with her for quite a while. So that was cool. Who else? It was great to see Dan Bongino again. I know you are a lot closer with him than I am, but he recognized me and came up to me and gave me a hug and asked how I was doing and how things were. And by that point in the night, it was still kind of early on. It was before the movie started, but it was clear to me that he certainly is very different than the vast majority of people that you're going to run into at something like that. So that was cool.
And Cash as well, I think too.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You want to tell him what happened when we got out of the vehicles and we look over and there he is?
Yeah. So we roll in through the security at Mar-a-Lago, and once we get through and pull up to where we're supposed to get out, and they had, like a chauffeur who was going to take the car and park it somewhere. We all hop out and, I look to my left and I'm like, oh, that's Cash Patel. And I just walk over there and he gives me a hug and a handshake, recognized me right away and said, hey, good to finally meet you guys in person. And then he was like, all right, you're with me. And he just took all of us, our group. And I mean, we were big. It was me, you, George, Steve, Sonia, Tony, and I think that's it. So 6 and Ryan. So 7 of us. That's like kind of a
so
big group.
let's. So Sonia Labasco, who we've had on the show, she's a coordinator for whistleblowers within the Federal Air Marshal Service. Her husband, Tony, who's a great guy and really funny, and a former Air Marshal as well, and former Secret Service. And then we had you and me and Steve. We had George Hill, who's our other great guest that shows up here and gives. And George and I did a long sit down and I picked his brain for a while. George is such a wealth of information and a really dark human being in some ways, but in a lovable way. Ryan Matta as well. And so anyway, a pretty awesome little group of people. Definitely the kind of people that we want to spend our time with if we're going to be away from our families. That's kind of our family away from home. So yeah, Cash
for sure.
kind of gathered up and then just started rolling. He's like on me, and then we moved.
Yep. Yeah. So he kind of gave us a little bit more of a behind the scenes tour of the general area in which the party was taking place, but took us up towards the big flag that President Trump waves there, and some of the other areas that I think were a little more off limits for the night.
The flag was off limits. That's why this. So, folks, if you follow us on True Social, you've seen the picture I posted. It's got Cash Patel in the background, and he's like striding in there. He's not photobombing. He goes, guys, you got to get a picture with the flag. Like stand up in front of the flag. And so we did. And so it's me and Steve and Garrett, and that's how many of you know how big Garrett is or how small Steve and I are. Take your pick. Garrett, how tall are you?
6'2".
Okay, so he's 6'2", and are you still close to 300, 280 something?
Yeah,
75?
275. Yeah.
Yeah. Garrett's a good sized guy. He's not the biggest guy in the world, but he's good sized. And Steve and I are like pretty small comparatively. Also, I don't know if the angle makes it even look worse, but it's pretty funny. And that flag coming out of my head is amazing. But in the background, Cash basically he goes like, guys, get a picture with the flag. And this woman from the Secret Service comes running up, and she's like, "Oh, you can't do it here. Like, this is not the place for." I don't know. I think it was off limits to non-club members. And Trump's house, like where his actual residence is, was just behind where we were. And Cash is like, "I got this, guys. Like, don't worry about it." And he goes striding off and just tells Secret Service what's up. So that's what you're seeing in that photo, which was a really funny moment for us. We're just getting there. We're getting yelled at by people left and right. Like staff from the club. They're like, "You can't be here." Yeah. And Cash is like, No. They can do whatever they say. I'm here. I'm the one doing this thing. He kind of, I don't think he even big time them. He's just like super mellow about it. He's just like, "Why are you? Don't worry about this. It's fine." Yeah. Hey, don't worry about it.
There. Yeah, they're just taking a picture. Hey,
it's just a picture. What are you worried about? It's just a flag.
But yeah, so that was cool. And then yeah, we all like many of you who are listening, watching, and holding it down in the live chat. We had our lapel pins on, and we had a couple handfuls of extra, and it kind of started to become a thing. Like probably after only being there for like an hour, people are, "Hey, I've been seeing that pin. What is it?" And so we got to kind of spread the message a little bit there, or at least plant the seed in a lot of ways, and hand out a couple of those. And definitely by the end of the night, people were really pointing them out and saying, I keep seeing that. I keep seeing that. What is it again? Oh yeah, the suspendables. Oh, you guys are all, canceled FBI agents or whatever. So hopefully, all of us, all of you who are sporting the pins and helping and spreading the message and wearing shirts and whatever, we're not going away unless they come at our doors at 6 a.m. someday, which they might. But oh well, like we're gonna keep going.
And many of the people that are out there, you guys follow some of these names in social media. You follow them in the news articles because a lot of these people are coming straight out of the news. I mean, we had Roger Stone there, who was raided by the FBI. We've got Michael Flynn, who was entrapped by the FBI with a perjury trap and no underlying crime. We gave Michael Flynn, General Flynn, a pin. We got one to Dan. We gave it to Dinesh. We had Aaron Stevenson, who's another whistleblower that we've had on the show here, and he was with Project Veritas. We had Tara Rodas. So we had a bunch of people, and they were starting to support this. Yeah, we had a clan. We were the single biggest represented group of people at Mar-a-Lago for this premiere or this screening, I would call it, on Wednesday. And then they asked me to stand up and MC it, which is also really funny. You can't help but appreciate the sort of amusement of just standing up in front of a bunch of people. I went up to people and I kept introducing myself. I'd say, "Hey, because Look, I'm a really regular guy. You're a regular guy. We're regular guys. We walk through the airport. Nobody knows who we are."
Yeah.
But in an event like that, where there's people that are hyper-focused on a very minute part of the news, like people know who we are. And so that's really strange to go and have someone, you go shake your hand. You've never met them before. You do what normal people do. You introduce yourself. You go, "Hey, how you doing? I'm Kyle Seraphin." And they're like, "Yeah, I know." You're like, "What do you mean you know? I don't know who you are. I've never met you. I'm trying to get your name. Can you tell me what your name is?"
Yeah.
I got to meet Kevin Sorbo, which was kind of cool. That's actually like the only like sort of celeb thing. I don't get really excited about celebs either. It doesn't matter. But I like Kevin Sorbo. I really love the fact that he was like a real view of masculinity when I was a kid.
For sure.
He played Hercules, and then he's also come out in a really big way, and he's just been a voice out of the conservative movement, being like, "Look, I may be in Hollywood, but I lifted weights." Like he's a man's man. He's tall, he's big. He's got some years on him at this point, but he's very personable. He speaks like a regular guy. So I got to shake his hand by the pool, and nobody was bugging him, and that was kind of fun. But that was about the only like celeb sighting. Everybody else is just people that we talk to in the world,
yeah.
and we're all doing the same thing. I mean, that's the other kind of crazy thing. You know what I mean? How about Mar-a-Lago as perception versus reality? How did that come out?
That, man, it's a phenomenal place. I think it certainly is worth more than $18 million. But real quick, I'm going to plug a movie of Kevin Sorbo. It's called God Is Not Dead. And he plays like an atheist professor of some sort or teacher. And I don't know, his background or like when he kind of came to have a more firm faith. But I think he certainly does as he's getting older and participating in movies like that, which is going to just get you further canceled from Hollywood. But he doesn't care because it's the right thing to do. But yeah, Mar-a-Lago, man, it's an immaculate place. I'd never been in Palm Beach before. I've never driven past Mar-a-Lago or anything like that. Certainly never been inside any place even close to that type of caliber of construction and meticulous, groundskeeping and just the layout. And like when we got there, the sun was starting to set, and it's coming down over the water, and all the people are kind of like mingling out there, and it was very surreal for me and that was one of my first impressions before starting to meet some of these people who I thought, in a lot of ways, I thought, wow, even these people are very disconnected from what's happening, but they don't think they are, and I think a lot of them truly are. But I hope I'm wrong about that. But just on the overall experience, that's kind of what I walked away from. But yeah, it's a man. I mean, I never would have imagined I'd ever be at a place like that. So it was really cool in that way to see something like that, and even kind of just be more like a fly on the wall and observe and meet a few people and hopefully just spread the message of what's happening. Honestly, probably the most memorable part of this whole thing for me, other than hanging with you guys, which is always fun. We don't get to do it a ton, but occasionally we do. So it seems like it's always in Florida too, but when we all are together. But when I was flying in, the day I flew in, I had a connecting flight in Baltimore, and I always front load my carry-on, and it's an Eberly stock backpack that I wore every day in Afghanistan, or I wore all the time in Afghanistan, and it's a good carry-on bag. It fits really good up top, and it fits all the stuff I would ever need. And so I front loaded. I have my earbuds in, and I'm listening to a sermon, and I hear Garret O'Boyle, and I'm like, I pull an earbud out, and I'm like doing one of these, and this lady who said my name, she probably saw that, like, oh, he's looking, and she goes, "Hey, Garret O'Boyle," and I was like, "Oh, hey," and I don't know who this person is, and I don't get recognized, even at Mar-a-Lago, not many people knew who I was or recognized me, even though I have the very distinguished type of ensemble. But
may I?
Yeah.
When Garret walks around in a large blue suit, because he's a large guy, and he has shoulder length hair, and the hair was down, was it not?
It was down, yeah.
The hair's down. The beard is legit. With the great beard comes the great responsibility. You had a red tie on, I want to say. Does that sound right?
It was blue. It was another crazy
blue
tie. Blue
Okay.
with a pink floral pattern.
But it pops, and you're above many people. You're not the biggest guy there, but not very many people there look like they were ready to throw or take a punch, I would say.
Yeah.
There wasn't like a lot of real meaty dudes.
Right.
And you're kind of, whenever I wanted to know where Garret was, I would just scroll the pool, and I would look for the upper end of the heads, and then the lower end of the hair. And it was boom, there he is.
There he is.
So yeah, you're not exactly missable, but not everybody is as tuned in as our audience is.
That's true.
To what's happening in the world, what's going wrong in the world. And it's worth knowing that. So yeah, you getting recognized is weird.
It is weird. It's really weird. And, and I get that too. My part, just being an FBI whistleblower, I get that that's just a small part of the overall wickedness and depravity that's going on in our country. But so okay, I'll try to be a little graceful with people who, okay, they meet me and they ask me about my PIN and they have no idea who I am. That is frustrating in the sense of to me, it's everything, because it's such an important battle to me. But I get that it's just, a fragment of it. So anyways, as I'm, I briefly meet this lady, and I was wearing one of our shirts, and she was like, "Yeah, I recognize the badge too." And I was like, "How do you know who I am?" And she's like, "Oh, I watched Kyle Seraphin show." And I'm like, "Oh, cool, great." But I'm like, I gotta, there's people behind me. And so it was very brief. And I was like, wow, that was cool. I sit down, and we go on our flight from Baltimore to Palm Beach. And, I'm kind of towards the back of the plane. She was towards the middle front. And by the time I get off, I'm not even thinking twice about it. But there she is, kind of hanging out, waiting for me. And she kind of flags me down, and she's like, "Hey, can you talk for a little bit?" We ended up talking for 15, 20 minutes maybe. And I don't know if she's in the live chat or not. And I don't even know if I should say her name. If she is, she knows who she is. But we just chat, and she kind of tells me about how she kind of came to this awakening relatively recently with paying attention and being involved in politics, and your show and Dan Bongino's and a couple others that she watches on the regular, and how she has realized this is really important. And then she says, can I help you? And I end up pulling up my Venmo, and she right there just Venmos me a substantial amount of money, in my opinion, and says
She asked if she could send you money, not can
she
I help you
asked.
specifically. Yeah, she wanted to
Right.
know if she could.
She wanted
if she
to,
could.
yeah.
Mhm.
And even that was weird because like one of the humbling parts of this whole experience has been just allowing people to help you. I'm not good. I realize I'm not good at that at all. But when they want to, like my friend who helped me go gather all my belongings from Virginia, he told me, let people bless you. And that has really stuck with me. And so I thinking in my head, she's telling me she wants to help. I'm trying to, I want to resist it, but I'm like, no, let her bless you. She wants to. And so, I pull up my Venmo, she sends me the money, and she labels it Girls Christmas. And, for me, I know people who've seen me on your show before, they know my faith is really important, a really important part of this. And I honestly was like, this is God literally saying, Garret, I got you. No matter what happens, I got you. Sure, maybe I'm not getting the $135,000 a year salary that the FBI pays out to agents, which on the human level would be nice. That would be great. I would, a very substantial.
Is that better
salary.
than getting $5,000 from Cash Patel?
Yes. Yes, it is. It's a lot more stable, and 15 more years, I would have got that pension and everything. But I know this world is passing away, and everything in this world is passing away. And so as hard as it can be sometimes, it's like, no, we're on this path for a reason. We were put into this moment of time for a specific reason. And if nobody else ever recognizes me ever again, but that lady did, it meant something, and she recognized also that my faith is an important part of this. And she said, how do you know so much about that and about the Bible and everything? And it's like, just over time and studying and really paying attention to it. And especially in the last probably 3 or 4 years, I've really realized how important it is. And she said, man, maybe I need to dive into that a little bit more. Maybe this is the sign that I've been waiting for. And I told her, I'm like, if me getting canceled from the FBI, if it means that one soul is saved, that one person turns to Christ, then it doesn't matter what happens to me. Then my life was worth it. So that's my story.
You actually believe that. Not all people say those things and mean it. I just want you to know, folks, as you're listening to Garret, Garret is he's a heart on his sleeve kind of guy. Yeah. And that is an honest statement. You talked about letting people bless you. We're going to actually play one of our promos that we've made. This is something I spent a little bit of time on. We've had new sponsors reach out to us. I only bring on people that make sense for the message that we're bringing to people. This group, 4 Patriots, the number 4 Patriots.com. Check them out. I'm going to play the promo because I actually had fun making it. But most importantly, they've come to us. If you guys don't have a food storage plan, make your own, can your own, do what makes sense. If you want to save time and effort and you just want to go and spend dollars instead of investing like part of your life into it, this is an option, and this has fun music. So I'm going to play this real quick here for us. You listen to the Kyle Seraphin Show, so you know that we don't think it's an if, but a when things get bad in this country. And when they get bad, you want to be prepared. One of my good buddies says you got 2 options. You can prepare or repair. I recommend you prepare, and you can go to 4 Patriots.com/Kyle. You can check out all of their survival goods, including their best-selling survival food. There is a thing called the rule of 3s in the military. It's a survival concept. It says that you can go for 3 weeks without food, although I don't recommend it. You can go for 3 days without water, although that gets really rough. You can go for 3 minutes without air, but you can't go for 3 seconds without hope. Failure to plan is planning to fail. Don't be that guy that doesn't know what to do if the lights go out and you don't have a grocery store to go to. That's not where the food comes from. It should come from your pantry. They sent me the 72-hour food pack. We cooked some up. Kids ate it. No problem. This is a victory. Get it done by going to 4Patriots.com/Kyle. You could throw something in your truck, in your van, in your minivan. Keep food where you are in case you can't get to where your food is. This is a real simple problem to solve. It's easy. You throw a couple dollars at it and you can forget about it. They're guaranteed for 25 years. That's an awful lot of time for you to be solving this problem. Go ahead and check it out. 4Patriots.com/Kyle, or use promo code Kyle if you go to 4Patriots.com. Yeah, there it is. I don't know, that jam, like it makes me feel like I'm doing like an 80s montage, like a training montage. I feel like I should be like lifting rocks in a garage or something, or like running in the snow with it up to my waist, which you're about to be doing because you're living in Nineveh, aka Wisconsin.
This is true.
I wanted to kind of hone in on that thing, letting people bless you. It reminded me of the fact that you had that happen. Someone came to you and said, "Let me help you." And you and I are men that are maybe proud is the right word, but if nothing else, we're self-reliant. We believe that we should be standing on our own 2 feet, that we have responsibilities to take on. We have to shoulder the burden of whatever it is, sometimes heavier than others. And you offered to come out, and this is how we found out that the fams were at least following me briefly because we flew to El Paso together, and you helped me move across the country. We didn't work together in the FBI. I think a lot of people don't understand that. Will you tell people how this is like the roots of the suspendables, where it started up, going back to September or October, how you even got brought, like how in the world that we even came into connection? Because we never worked in the same office, folks. Like I never met Garret on duty when we worked for the FBI.
Right. Yeah. So for me, so a lot of people, we probably memory hold this, but which we can't. We have to always remember this part of it, because I think it really was a tipping point, if not one of the bigger ones. So when Joe Biden signed Executive Order 14043, that was the EO that mandated the COVID-19 vaccine. And like Kyle, but I didn't know it at the time, I was a hard no on that for my spiritual reasons, and even for legal reasons, which I ended up eventually putting into about a 15-page constitutional concerns memo. That's what I titled it. And I ended up, knowing what I know now about whistleblowing, that was my first protected disclosure. I made that to my direct chain of command. Of course, it went nowhere. So eventually you get the opportunity, again, my finger quotes should have been used there, but to apply essentially for a religious accommodation to abstain from the injection. And, I do one of those, and I went pretty hard on that as well. And that was also about 15 pages, filled with scripture references and my beliefs and all sorts of things. And so eventually, that lands on my CDC's desk. In the FBI, the CDC is the Chief Division Counsel. He has since become a very dear friend, and I found out he also was a believer. And I had worked with him before because of casework or things like that, but we had never really talked on a more of a personal basis. So I sent that to him for kind of a legal review. And then I found out that he also was in the same boat as me. And he said, "Hey, are you in the Signal group?" And I had no idea what that was. I knew what Signal was, but I didn't know what the Signal group was. And he ends up inviting me to it and bringing me in. And that's how I met Kyle, because around the same time, probably a few weeks earlier, Kyle had started to set up the Signal group, and friends of his who were in the same boat as us, who were not under any circumstances going to put something in our body that we believed, based on our sincerely held beliefs, was wrong. This group started to grow and grow and grow. And I think at its peak, it was around 300 people. And that's kind of how it started. And early on, I was messaging in there a lot and posting my religious exemption or that constitutional memo or things like that. But that is really the early stages of how Kyle and I met. And then at some point we start messaging more direct on Signal. And from there, well, fast forward a couple years and here we are almost 2 years later, and very different circumstance, but
so different. The thing that's so important, and I think this is actually a message for people to take some heart in. And I think this actually speaks to your character in a way that many people may not know. And look, folks, doing something hard, that's what when we say the suspendables, it means that something bad is going to happen. I suspected something bad would happen when I went forward to Congress. I told my wife that we're probably going to lose the job. They obviously didn't like the fact that I wouldn't put stuff up my nose. And so I was removed without pay for months. And I accepted that. That was fine. And I'm telling 300 people inside the FBI, 1% of the FBI, essentially. There's about 30-something thousand, 36,000 people in the FBI. We had close to 1% of them, which was 10% of the objectors to the COVID shots. And when I'm telling them this, I'm like, look, this is coming for you. Start making your plans now. It's a lot like when I'm telling you, figure out what your food supply looks like. It's a lot like getting your religious house in order, getting your faith and your ideas, setting your feet in stone so that you are not going to give any territory back, because we need to be gaining territory right now when it comes to freedom and faith and family and liberties. So I started talking to Garret offline away from these people, and I just said, they're going to come for everybody, and you too. And so when I went forward with showing that they were going after parents at school board meetings, he and I started talking. He's like, look, I'm going to find out what cases they actually pulled up on this threat tag. Like, I'm going to find out who they were investigating, and I'm going to bring that forward. And so many of you may not understand this, but the original protected disclosure that really got Garret on the map, I think, is that he went to Jim Jordan's office with information about who these people were, who the actual parents were. And maybe some of you out there were those parents that were at school board meetings. You probably don't know because the names are not public.
Right.
But there are parents who were being investigated by the FBI when the FBI said they were not doing that thing. And that was the line too far for you in some ways.
Right.
You want to talk about the decision process? Because I think that's also something that people they need to emulate, if nothing else. They need to emulate the process that you went through that said, it's coming for me because I told you.
Yep.
And then how it came to you, and then maybe when it actually did. I think that'd be worth hearing.
Yeah. So for me, it probably really started when I was writing that religious accommodation request. And by the time I got done with that, and I remember it so vividly because they had a due date on it, which I still would say that that's illegal. And I included reasons as to why in what I wrote. But I'll abstain from going down that rabbit hole. And I remember when I got done writing it, it was over Columbus Day weekend because we had a 3-day weekend. And I basically was locked in the whole time to make this thing as jam-packed as possible with how wrong they were and why, from a biblical perspective, and in some ways from a legal perspective. And by the time I was done with that, I told my wife, and I had my gun and my badge and my creds, like where I kept that stuff in Kansas. And I grabbed my badge and my creds, and I said, they can take it. It's not worth your soul. It's not worth what you believe. And I didn't say this, but it reminds me of what I said earlier. This world is passing away. And the reason we are here is for God's glory and to glorify him and to do his will. And of course, we get it wrong. Like I've said before, I sin every day, many times. I know. I know I'm imperfect, which is why we need Christ to die on the cross so he could save us. And I just remember thinking, like, this is for man. Being an FBI agent, having creds and a badge and this position. I do believe that the government is ordained by God. Again, this is a rabbit hole. This would take me over an hour to talk about. But when government goes against what God has ordained and what God wants, you have a duty to resist what the government is doing. And I think at this point in this country, for all sorts of reasons, not just the COVID vaccine, but all sorts of reasons, we are at a point where you have to set your fear aside. Because people say all the time, man, you're so courageous. I'm not. I'm really not. I was afraid too. And then by the time I got canceled, I was really afraid because now I don't have income. Now, who knows? And then even after I testified, now I'm being threatened with being arrested. So there is plenty of fear there. But at this point, you only can lean into doing what is right, because what other choice do you have? What other option do you have? I could have early on gotten a fake vaccine card, gotten the vaccine, all sorts of other options to just cave. And I kept coming back to my beliefs and saying, I can't do those things because those are wrong too. And then once I started going to Congress, it was another one of those things where it's like, man, I'm pretty sure this is going to end poorly for me. And I was right about that as well. I had been doing it for so long, about 10 months by the time I was canceled, that I don't know if I got complacent, but I kind of forgot. And I thought, oh, maybe they realized, oh, this guy's going to Congress. There's nothing we can do. Obviously, I learned the hard way that was a false belief. But again, it's one of those things where it's like the government is doing what is wicked. Congress is set there legally to be a barrier from that wickedness. we are approved by law to go to Congress. So we did. And when they come for you anyways, and they will, and they're starting with the list they have of people who dissented from that vaccine, what other option do you have but to do what is right? What regardless of your fear?
Yeah. Let me so we're talking to Garret O'Boyle. He's an FBI whistleblower. He's a dear friend of mine. He is the one who is helping me understand a little bit about how the suspendables came to be, because I feel like it's really important for us. Now we're looking back. We just got back from Mar-a-Lago, and we're kind of talking on the perception versus the reality. You expect things to be one way. They are something very different. Let me ping this against you, because this just occurred to me. I've been saying this frequently in the last few days, that we all sort of think that we all make plans. That's what men and women do. Human beings make plans. They have an expectation of what the world will look like. And then God has a different plan, oftentimes, which we find out. And you can't really realize what that is until you look in the rearview mirror. In the moment, you're like, oh, I'm losing my job. I'm getting moved out of my place. My children have no home. They don't have any coats. I have no income. Like all the things that are terrifying, and they really are. They're really scary, and they're upsetting. And most people are not able to deal with it. And then you look in the rearview and you go, oh, that's why. That makes sense.
For sure.
And I imagine that people through all of history have gone, this door closed. I thought it was all over. Another door opened. My life is now better than it could have been. Like I had somebody there's this troll that goes after me on Twitter, and apparently he's a former agent, and I don't think he actually knew me ever, but he claims to have known me at headquarters, which is funny because if you knew me at headquarters and you thought I was a bad person in the FBI, that actually is a really bad reflection on you. I had no bad reviews. I rubbed some people the wrong way because I feel very strongly about things, but like nobody ever came to my face and had problems with it. And if they did, I probably didn't like them. And probably if you listen to the show, you wouldn't like them either. There's a lot of just do the job that you're told. But what occurs to me is this. You made a whistleblower disclosure. You didn't realize that was a protected disclosure, but it fits the statute. I've done several. I started them in probably 2018. I started going to the Office of General Counsel. I think I even did some in 2017, talking about how my boss was doing things that were actually illegal. They were against federal employment law. So you start doing certain things. You don't know that those are part of the thing. And each one of those little incremental steps, it prepares you, but it also sort of softens you to taking direct action. You're like, well, I told somebody. That's what many of you will do in your lives. And the only reason why you and I are sitting in this position right now is because we didn't have one decision and one action. We had multiple decisions and multiple actions hit us all in the face very glaringly. And instead of us softly pushing back, we set our feet, threw our fists up, and said, this is the fight that I'm going to die on this hill, and I'm not going to go any further. And of course, we lost the job over it.
Right.
But it actually prepared us for a much more radical push, because it wasn't like if somebody came up and said, hey, man, could you just park your car over there? You can't park in your driveway anymore. And you'd be like, oh, can I not? Oh, all right. I could park in the street, I guess. Like I could accommodate one thing, right? Or they'd be like, hey, listen, you can't wear a baseball hat anymore. We have to be able to see your eyes. And you'd be like, oh, really? Huh. I mean, I don't mind people seeing my eyes. That's not really that big of a deal. I want to wear a baseball hat, though. It's sunny out. But, okay, fine. I could compromise. I can park my... And then they're like, but if someone came to you and was like, listen, dude, here's the deal. From now on, you will only wear blue socks, and you will not wear a baseball hat, and you will not park in your own driveway. And you're like, these are arbitrary, capricious, and like completely tyrannical ideas, and you're going to throw them all at me at once?
Yeah.
I'm out. Now what? Because I say no. And we were put in that situation. Those are just like everyday little examples, but it's like, go put this thing up your nose and make sure that you do what we say and, comply with this thing that you think is tyrannical. And by the way, we're going to be doing some really awful stuff. We're probably going to have you go and observe parents that are just like you doing something that you know in your heart is illegal. It's constitutionally prohibited. Go do all those things at once. And You're like, oh, smack, it hits you right in the face. I hit the microphone too. It smacks you right in the face. And you just go like, it shocks you out of that sort of complacency of your life where you're used to kind of going along and getting along. We had a real firm decision, basically for all our chips. It's like going all in on poker.
Yeah, for sure.
It's like, are you in or are you out? And you and I are in.
Yeah, all the way, 100%. What you're saying, it reminds me of a verse that has been heavy on me. It's Proverbs 19:21. Many are the plans in a person's heart, but it is the Lord's purpose that prevails. And that's precisely what this is. You don't know what your decisions are leading to. You don't know what other people's decisions are leading to relative to what you've done. All these things working together on the divine algorithm that the Lord has at play for these. Like, it was always going to be this. We just didn't know it. And all those things at once. And I think our military backgrounds, our time in law enforcement, sometimes you're taking in all of this information at once, with whether it's a crime scene, being in combat, whatever it might be. It's like pouring in. It's like sensory overload, and it's fight or flight. And it was very similar with all of these things coming at once. And then to look around and say, why is nobody else doing what's right? And then when you start having these sidebar conversations with these people, they all agree that it's wrong. And it's like, you're an FBI agent, or you're a task force officer working for the FBI, or you're the boss in the FBI. You swore the same oath that I swore. You're telling me that you know it's wrong. So why are you doing it? And they all, not all, the vast, vast, vast majority did it anyways. And that is how people in this nation, in this government, has been turned over to just pure, vile wickedness. And I know there are people out there who say, that's going to be okay. It's going to be all right. Well, is it? Because as history has shown time and time and time again, it only gets worse from here.
That's right. Somebody just in the chat mentioned that they were in awe of how easily you cite Bible verses, and I'm curious, if just dropping them out of the knowledge that lives in your head. I wonder if that comes from studying statute and being able to be a cop, and if there's any sort of parallel there that you see.
Yeah, I think that's actually a very astute point. I haven't really thought about it in that way, but yes, it has to be that way. Like, as you said that, I just thought of back.
It's your code book.
Yeah, it's a code book. And there's a handful, just like with the code book, that you just know. Like 947.01 is disorderly conduct in Wisconsin. I still know that. I've not been a law enforcer here for 5-6 years, but I know that one because that was a very common one, and I'm sure if I thought about there'd be others, and then of course you can always go look, so, but like that, the one from Proverbs I just mentioned, I put it in a Substack after Steve and I got back from testifying. We had it written on our window, one of the windows in Kansas, because we had a lot going on before I got suspended, with potentially trying out for the new position, having a baby on the way. And so that was kind of like one of our family verses at the time. And it has just remained so. So that's one that has really stuck. They don't all stick. Sometimes I'll just be like I'll know there's a verse about whatever I'm thinking, and I'll just punch it in and DuckDuckGo or whatever, and I'll put a couple of the keywords and
drag the numbers out of it. But you know roughly where it's going. Like, I know one that you're going to probably know the actual reference, but something to the effect of God has prepared you for a time such as this. What does that come from?
Yeah, I don't know the reference, but I know the verse. You
know the verse. We know the verse. It's in our head, right?
Yeah.
I feel like your ability to drop code the way that you did when you were a law enforcement officer doing local law enforcement, real law enforcement in many ways, not cosplay with the Bureau. When you did that, it prepared you. And my wife actually said something similar to me, which we do share these things. This is something, and we'll talk about this in a second. But there's something to the effect of all of your processes that brought you to this point. Like I said, you look in the rear view and you go, of course. Like, I didn't deploy when I was in the military. That's what I joined the military to do. I wanted to go to war. You went to war. I was always sort of envious of guys that got to do the job. Not because I thought going to war was so glamorous, but because you sign up for something, you want to see it through. Yeah, that's just like if you train for something, you don't do it. That's a strange thing. And my wife sat me down right before this all went live. And I don't know if you know this, but I think you do. Just before they took my badge and my gun in April of 22, my wife was baptized as a Catholic.
Yep, I did know that. Yep.
And she had previously, no faith tradition in her life. Grew up as sort of an atheist, not because she was like a lovely person, always was. Probably one of the most godly people, but just, she just didn't have any formalized structure for it. And so she was baptized. We were prepared for that problem. And she said, all of the training that you did that you never deployed for, like, it's all for now. And a lot of the training I did was very, very hard physical stuff and resistance training in various ways. And so then you go and it's like, they're going to push something on you and you're trained for resistance. It's easy. You're like, oh, you're going to make me do really hard things. I did this voluntarily for a living. Bring it.
Yeah.
You can't break me. They always say that special operations training is not about physicality. It's actually about mental toughness. They say something that's like it's 20% physical, it's 80% mental. It's actually bigger than that. If you're not physical, you're going to get crushed.
Right.
but your mind has to be the strongest weapon of all of them. George Hill says the most dangerous weapon is between your ears. I agree. A lot of people say that. This is the human weapon system, and my weapon system was honed for this thing. So it's like, bring it on.
Yeah.
I'm not scared of you. Well, like, what are you going to do? You're going to take my job? I've had a bunch of jobs.
Yeah.
It turns out I've had a bunch of jobs, and I will be the first guy, and I'm still standing, and it allows other people to go, well, maybe I could stand too. It also let a lot of people know maybe I should not say anything and keep my job.
Yeah. I think that is a big part of it. It's people, they see what happens, and they, I've had people say like, I want to be like that. How can you be? And I'm like, I don't really have an answer like that. I can't break the code for you. Like, I think you're 100% right. It's those past experiences have led us to this point, have given us the ability to say no. And honestly, part of that even is things I look back on in my life and say, I should have handled that different. I should have spoken up. I should have intervened. I should have. And I'm sure there will still be things like that in the future where I don't do what's right. And then in retrospect, it's like, oh, I should have done that. All of those things are part of this algorithm that helps bring you to where you are. And I thought, I always thought, especially like in the last 15 years or so, my time in the Army, my time as a cop, my time as an FBI agent, I thought this is what God's plan for my life is, to be this type of protector, this type of person. But in reality, he was using those things to prepare me for this. Like I think of the combat I did see, very different from the combat we're in now. But mentally, it's very similar in a lot of ways. And, I've said before that this whole experience, this trial of my life is harder than my deployments. And people probably don't understand that. And I don't even know if I can articulate it in a superb way, because you would think, oh, you're getting shot at and you're there for a year, and guys are getting blown up from IEDs and losing limbs, or perhaps on the brink of death. I'm thinking of one guy in my platoon. We all thought he was going to die. He ended up living. And then, like I wear this bracelet for my friend who was killed. How could that be harder? Or how could this be harder than all of that? And it's probably because you see this tyranny so clearly. And then, like for me, with my faith and the examples in the Bible of when people resisted tyranny, the biggest one is probably in the book of Exodus, when Moses straight up told Pharaoh no. And lots of Christians today will say, don't get political. And it's like, well, tell that to Moses. Or don't get political. Okay, tell that to Jesus. He was crucified at the hands of corrupt government officials, from the Jewish side and the Roman side. So don't tell me not to get political. You can call it getting political if you want, but simply it's doing what's right. And if it took going to war and being a cop and all of that to be here, well, fine. This is what the Lord has prepared us for. This is our fight. This is our battle. And join us, everybody, because we're going to win in the end. Maybe not on earth, but we will win in the end.
Yeah, and there's plenty of people, obviously, who are watching this that have already taken that sort of thing. That's probably why they're unfortunately we tend to speak to a choir in a lot of ways. But there's some ways that we can expand that. I'm going to talk about that in a second. Let me say thanks to our folks over at Patriot Coolers. I'm going to play this again. I took the time to put these little promos together, and I think they show it is better than my just simple live read. So I'm going to throw that on. Plus, it's got like a nice little like gentle jam in here. And then we're going to talk about who it is that does actually stand up and what kind of people those are, perception versus reality of who you expect. So let's go this real quick. Let's say thanks to Patriot Coolers. Today's podcast is sponsored in part by Patriot Coolers. You can find them at their website, patriotcoolers.com. You can also find them on social media at Patriot Coolers. Make sure if you order one of these fine products that you tag me as well, because I like seeing them. As a gearhead, you guys know I love seeing it. I like retweeting it. I like retruthing it and sharing it. Check out their page for hard-sided coolers, soft-sided backpacks, and carryable coolers. And of course, the tumblers, which I've been carrying with me on and off duty since about 2017. They're a great company. They've got a great product. They support our show, and they support disabled veterans. Visit patriotcoolers.com. Use my promo code Kyle. That's easy to remember. KYLE. and support a brand that supports what you do. Patriot Coolers out of Houston, Texas, America is a good company with a great name that you don't mind showing off. Again, patriotcoolers.com. Using promo code Kyle, Kyle, to get 10% off, and shipping over $50 is always free. And we appreciate you supporting those who support our show. We really do. We do appreciate it. I see a bunch of you, new faces, new names in the live chat. I'm really excited to see a lot of you out there. So thanks for joining us. Thanks for participating in the chat part of it, because I think that's a good chunk, the sort of community that goes along with what we're doing out here. And if you're just joining us and you haven't given us a thumbs up on Rumble, we do appreciate that as well. Give us a like on this video. You can also give Garret O'Boyle a follow. He's at GOB, like Garret O'Boyle, GOB Actual on True Social and on Twitter. If you're on Twitter, you'll go into the timeout thing where he has to approve you manually. But mention if your profile comes after this show, I'm sure he'll be opening some of those things up. Are you allowed to do that yet? Has your lawyers given you any?
I don't know. I mean, yeah, I don't know. It's just all so weird. I know they have a different mentality and different approach on things that I probably don't understand. And, while we were in Florida, I was emailing back and forth a little bit with them. And, I trust them. I'm grateful for them. But sometimes I do wonder. And I know they are probably looking at a different landscape than I am. So,
oh, definitely. Yeah. It's not nearly as personal. So here's something, kind of just a small thing. And I know you do this all day long too. We just showed that little promo. I'm over there opening up my new Patriot cooler. What do you call it? Large cooler, the 50 quart. And I'm cutting it out and I'm pulling on the box so you see it and kind of like sped up. And in the background is my garage gym. I used to have like a 1,000 square foot garage. I used to have the best garage gym, one of the best ones in America for a guy that made his little money. Like I wasn't a millionaire. I just had like a nice house in a very inexpensive part of the world. And I had this awesome garage gym. I had everything. I had a 6-post rack, and I had a heavy bag and a water bag and a, cardio equipment and a deadlift platform and all the things, right? I had 9 barbells on the wall. I had like thousands of dollars worth of barbells. And and I don't have any of that stuff anymore. I can't carry it with me. I'm in a rental house. Like I got a couple of things that are strapped on that wall, which is better than a lot of people because that's what I spend time and money on. But it's like, dude, that was an opportunity cost. That was the cost of doing business.
Yeah.
And it's easy. I would do it again every time. If they're like, you're never going to have this gym and you're not going to be able to live in this house again, I'd be like, okay.
Yeah. All right. Yeah.
So the interesting thing is this: we just spent time. We talked about our little crew that went to Mar-a-Lago. We were all we rented a house together, and we all got to say, like, can you kind of comment on the characters of those people? Some of them you hadn't met before in person and you hadn't really spent time with. Anything that struck you about meeting those people and sort of maybe values that were in common as you put them all together in the house?
Yeah. So Ryan was the only person I had not yet met in person. I've spent a fair amount of time with you, especially with the move from Las Cruces to Austin, but and then some time with Steve, with testifying in Florida, and a little bit of time with Sonia. Last time in Florida, I got to meet Tony as well.
Oh.
And honestly, yeah, dude, like the one thing that really shines through for me is how different we are, but how similar. We're all so different. Like our characteristics and quality traits and personalities. And I guess we all come from some type of law enforcement background other than Ryan. But so we have that common thread, but we're so different. But then the things that say, no, I'm not crossing this line. It's like a beacon for all of us where it's like, yeah, of course. Why would you cross that line? And we all have that similar trait, and I was foolish enough to think that everybody in law enforcement, everybody in the military, that's how we all were. And, I know there are people out there who are in those professions who struggle because they know the right thing to do, but they don't do it. And I think that just comes from loving the things of the world a little bit too much. And don't get me wrong, I struggle with that, man. Like you were just talking about your gym. My gym, probably not as nice as yours, but nice enough and probably nicer than most. I've had it since I was a cop. It's when I started building it up, and I had it in Kansas, and it was almost a daily, routine of going in there and using that equipment. And it's been broken down since we moved from Kansas. And then it was in part of the lockup that the FBI did with all of our stuff for weeks and weeks and weeks. And then it sat in the garage at the rental, and now we're at a different place, and it's locked up here, or it's broken down here, and I have it listed on Facebook Marketplace because we don't have room for it, and I don't know when I'm going to use it. Like, and there are other things too, like the house we were going to get in Virginia, and our salaries and our pension and our health care and all sorts of things you can point to earthly, but who cares? And that
But that's it. The other thing that I saw too that's so wild is that you notice that nobody had to assign any duties while we're there. Somebody stepped up and said, "I'm going to be doing the cooking. That's what I'm most passionate about." Everyone else was like, "Okay, well, what's my job?" Like, we're BSing around, but it's like, "Okay, I'm going to do the cleaning." Nobody had to tell anybody a role.
Right.
Think about a group of people that you get together. Even if you get your family, you're like, "Hey, can you pitch in?" There was nobody there that didn't pitch in and do their thing.
Right.
Everything got done. The house got cleaned. We walked out, and I don't remember having a single discussion. There's certain types of people in this world, the people that I want to be around, that know that they have a job and a role and responsibilities, and they pick them up gladly and they carry them. And then think about the difference between that and people who are, a lot of them in federal service, where if you didn't beg them to do their job, they don't do it.
Right. I mean,
They don't go looking for work.
have you heard the anecdote of pushing the grocery cart back? Have you heard that before?
Yes,
About
but share it anyway.
Yeah, so it's essentially, you get your groceries, you go to your vehicle, you load them up, and the cart return, it's too far away, or you got to take it back to the store or whatever. And are you going to return the cart? Nobody's going to do anything if you don't. It's just going to sit in the parking lot until an employee gets it. I think
Somebody's getting paid for it, right? I mean, that's the mindset. Or producer Phil calls it a citizenship test.
Mm-hmm.
You can find out what kind of citizen you are based on what you're willing to do with a grocery cart.
Yeah, and I think that's what we all, and were in the house in Florida, you push the cart back, and you don't think twice about it, because otherwise it's not getting done. We're not getting meals made unless you're assigning it, and then somebody's not doing it just out of the genuineness of their heart. They're doing it because they were asked to or told to, but that was not the case at all. And I bet anytime we all get together, it will never be the case.
It's also one of those pieces where everybody is given different gifts, but it's the same spirit.
Right.
Whenever I start hanging out with you, I start all my scriptural references start coming to top of mind, which is good for me too. Yeah. But there's something to be said about not everybody is asked to do the same thing. Not everybody is asked to be as suspendable in the same way. Not everybody is have to lose their job over it.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe your job is that you're a manager, and you're the person that pushes back, and you're allowed to cover for your employees. I'm going to take care of my people. You're going to lose 8 people. Are you willing to lose 8 people over this bad policy you have? Well, we're not. That would destroy our company. Well, act accordingly. And maybe you're in a place of authority enough. The sad thing is, we don't see any suspendables coming from the upper ranks. No. But in the broader context of this country, there are people, there are companies. There's a company, and I don't get any money from them. They're one of my favorite companies. Folks, if you want to go to a good place to buy accessories for firearms, dsgarms.com. I'm a huge fan of what they did. They sent out an email to all their customers, and I've been a loyal customer for a long time. They offer a great military and law enforcement discount, so that's cool. But they sent out an email to their customers, and they said, we are a approved government contractor and provider. We have contracts to be able to sell different goods. We are not going to force our employees to get the COVID vaccine, and we're going to lose all of our government contracts over it. And we're going to lose some business. So we hope you stick with us.
Yeah.
I went out of my way that week to buy things from them
Yeah.
that I had been thinking about maybe buying it at some point.
Yeah.
When people do that, they're like, I'm going to lose something because it's the right thing to do. We should send them, whoever the CEO of the company, I don't know who they are, but maybe we should they're in Texas.
Yeah.
Not shockingly. We should send them some suspendables gear.
We should, for sure.
There's another couple companies that said, we're not going to go to Las Vegas and do SHOT Show because SHOT Show requires that you wear a mask, and I'm not going to make my employees wear a mask.
Yeah. Good. I mean, and
there are people out there doing that.
Yeah. It's such a small number, but fear and courage, man, they are They are yin and yang. And I think when people see fear, they become more afraid. When people see courage, and again, courage is not the lack of fear. It's not at all. But when they see it, they think, ah, maybe I could do that too. And when people see companies doing things like this, I mean, I'm like kind of dumbfounded because you don't see companies doing that. You just don't. You see them putting Dylan Mulvaney up as their poster boy, and you're going the wrong way. You're going the other direction now. And then look
Yeah,
what
you are.
happens. Then they do get a little bit canceled. But it's it's great to hear of companies like that, because that's the thing. If we all just stood up for the truth and stood up for what we believed in and what was right, well, we wouldn't have had lockdowns like we had. We wouldn't have had mass mandates like we had. We wouldn't have companies losing government contracts over it, because we would be the people telling the government, you're wrong. You can't do that. Don't do that. But instead, we march forward towards tyranny, mostly, but not entirely.
We went into this bathroom because we had some downtime. We checked out of our Airbnb in Florida, folks, and Garrett and I are standing out there, and Ryan's showing Garrett a drone, and I'm telling George Hill stuff, and George Hill is telling me scary stories about how scary the world is, and it's very scary. And we have to go and use this public restroom because we've got like 5 hours to kill. We're just sitting like homeless guys on our bags waiting to go to the airport, and we didn't want to sit at an airport. So I go into this public restroom. Sometimes you see some really interesting messages in very strange places. And there was a sign. It was a warning sign. It was all red with white letters. It looked like an official warning, like, don't touch this. It could be hot or slippery when wet or something to that effect. And it was on the hand dryer in the men's restroom in West Palm Beach, in a bathroom that is probably used mostly by homeless people. And somebody had put the sticker on, and the sticker said, your obedience is perpetuating this nightmare. Your obedience is perpetuating this nightmare is something that we should all take to heart. It's almost like there's a Newtonian physics law that objects in motion tend to stay in motion and objects at rest tend to stay at rest. The fundamental principles of inertia. It's almost like it's coded into the way the world works. If you are courageous and you take courageous action, it begets more courage.
Yep.
And people around you are more likely to fall into that slipstream behind you and also be courageous. You don't have to be the first person through the door, but you got to go through the door, right? And in the same way, fear perpetuates more fear.
Yep.
And inaction perpetuates more inaction. Many of us are going to have to learn, some of you already have, how to be less governable, because that's a fundamental American principle, is that we were an ungovernable people. That's why they didn't create a system of broad capabilities and compliance. It was like, you have a lot of freedom, don't screw it up. Handle your own business, go forth and multiply, and go take over the country.
Yeah. I tweeted this actually, and somebody screenshotted it and shared it, which I'm fine with because I stand by it. But Ben Franklin, he will, early on in this great experiment, he said, rebellion to tyranny is obedience to God. And Thomas Jefferson liked that so much, he took it and put it on his family seal or crest or whatever he had made. And it's like, that couldn't be more true. That's it precisely. What we have to remember is when the government becomes tyrannical, like Pharaoh, or like many other examples we could point to. Again, that we'll do a full show if you want, maybe 3 of them. But there's
maybe
so many
maybe you'll have your own show doing this pretty soon on this channel.
Yeah. And so rebellion to tyranny is obedience to God. And you can't comply your way out of this. You simply have to do what's right, and it's simple. It's not easy all the time, because we live in our human mindset and the way we live on this earth. We think this is it. And it's like, no, we're just passing through. We're just sojourners passing through.
There was a big discussion as the church broke and the Protestants came off, and it was essentially the fundamental debate between Protestants and Catholics historically was something to the effect of whether faith alone saves you, or whether your actions show your faith, whether your deeds. So it was really faith versus deeds. There was this long sort of, I'm simplifying it dramatically, obviously, but there is that focus. And while faith alone may be enough to save you, it may not be enough to save this country. It's
Yeah.
going to take some deeds.
sure.
It's time to step in, which is a pretty Catholic way of going about things. It's like, how will you know? You'll know they're Christians by their love. You'll know that they are faithful by the actions that they perform. It's time. That's what suspendables are. People who, those of you who know exactly what I'm talking about, you're in the live chat. So like I said, we are indeed preaching to the choir. But the way you get more people to join the choir is you sing loudly, you sing proudly, and you sing on tune as best you can. and invite someone to join you, because people are able to follow action. Everyone's looking for leaders. Everyone right now is looking for someone to follow. And we find that. I think that's what's so strange for both of us. Maybe that's the weird thing about being recognized, is because we're just doing what we would do.
Right.
And that shouldn't be unusual, but it is at this time. And so therefore people are like, got it. I want to be with you guys. And I wholly invite you to be with us. And some of you are going to have to start being a little bit more uncomfortable, because your example is going to get recognized. Most of us intend not to be that.
Right.
I had a funny discussion about social media. You ever had social media before?
Yeah, I had it, but it was, it's just, I was like friends with friends from, work or from the army or whatever, family, nothing crazy,
Yeah. And now you have a profile that people will actually look at, and you look down and you go, oh, like this congressperson is watching me, or it's like this news person is following me. I see it every day. There's like new people that I'm like, oh, these people have influence over the world. I don't like the word influencers, but they are providing a perspective, and they are looking at me to see what mine is too, which is why all these things end up being recorded. And whenever somebody says something, it's like, has anybody attacked the message that we are bringing? They may attack us as human beings, imperfect vessels out there, but nobody's saying fundamentally that what we said is wrong.
Yeah.
And we are giving false information.
Right.
We get a lot of these like former bureau people that are like, oh, you couldn't hack it in the bureau. It's like, really? Yeah, thank God.
Yeah.
Like, I consider that a badge of honor. Silly guy person that you are. But
go ahead.
No, you.
Burt Macklin
yes,
on
we love
Twitter.
Burt.
Yeah,
we love
great.
Burt Macklin on Twitter. He's so funny.
Yeah. He sent me a message yesterday. He went back and listened to when Steve and I were on PBD, and he said something to the effect of like, man, you guys just came off as genuine, as truthful, as reliable, as smart, like you knew what you were talking about. And I just thought like, well, yeah, when you just are who you are, and which we just tell the truth. That's what we did as FBI agents. That's what we did as cops. That's of course that's what shines through, because that's just what you do. And I did take it as a compliment still, but we're probably so used to politicians or just how phony people can be. And it's like, so yeah, when they see somebody just being like who they really are, well, then that's like noticeable. And that's kind of sad that that's the case, but that's where we are.
I did an interview with Seb Gorka the other day. Some of you guys, if you didn't see it, we did the Manhood Hour. It's actually my favorite thing to do, long form discussions, and especially with fun people like Seb. And so he was asking me questions, and then it's just like, I just tell you the truth. I'd tell you the same thing if we were sitting and having a beer. A lot of my interviews are getting that way, where it's like, I'm not making this stuff up. I didn't have to go and like find some talking points. Like, why? I just tell you the thing that I either know to be true or that I think to be true, or something that happened in the past that illustrates whatever my points are. And I've got a pretty good memory, so I'm blessed with that. And I have an easy way of communicating a lot of these things. And some of them are really funny. And they're not always very flattering to me. A lot of them are pretty self-deprecating, because if you can't laugh at yourself, like, we're all going to be in tears anyway. So I just think that's really funny. I want to wrap this one up. This week has been a long one. I'm grateful for you coming on and sharing this perspective. And give people an opportunity to follow the website. And you got a new shirt up there, so I'm going to put you full screen. I'm going to let you talk about that and tell people where they can find it.
Yeah, so a lot of people have been asking about the Last Line Strength shirt. So if you can tell, this one has a green line. So I put that up there today. You can get these again now, but the blue line.
What's the green line?
The green line is for military. So that's my original idea was to have a blue line, a green line, and a red line shirt, and then maybe expand from there. And this goes back to my days in the police department, but yeah, it's weird how it's finally like starting to come to fruition in a way, but I can't imagine ever would have taken what has happened to get there. But lots of people have been asking about that shirt. So the green line and blue line are available, and red line will be shortly. So for those of you who've been asking, you can go to the-suspendables.com or lastlinestrength.com. I think I had that sorted out too. So it'll all redirect to our store, and you can start getting the Last Line Strength shirt and some others. And I also put up another one on, I think right before I left for Florida. It's 2 Timothy 1:7, which I won't get into a whole deep story about it, but it's a verse that's very near and dear to my heart because of my experience going to testify before Congress. And I wrote a little description about that, and maybe we can deep dive on that some other time. But that one's up there, and a couple of those have already sold. So now that I'm back, I'll be hopefully getting back to getting orders ready to go.
And someone just asked, you look like a pretty good size guy. What size shirt are you wearing?
I'm wearing an XL, and that's what I've usually gone with. And, honestly, truth be told, like, yeah, I've gained a little bit of weight in the last year. That's another work in progress. Because I said earlier, I'm 6'2", 275, but a good area for me is 6'2", 250. And so the XL might be a little snug right now, but I'm still rocking an XL.
All right.
But
I'm in a medium. I like a medium. I can wear a large, but I like the medium. And if you're Steve Friend, you wear large, even though you're a size small. We don't know what he's doing. He likes to swim in shirts. He likes to have a lot of air around him. He feels like he's like in a Muslim robe or something. We were giving him a hard time earlier. I was like, man, you're super skinny. Why do you have a large on? That's a weird thing to do. I think he likes it long down to his knees so he can wear it to bed or something. But yeah, so those are the sizes, folks. The-suspendables.com. Garrett, thanks for joining me this morning. Thanks for hanging out with me this weekend. Thanks for being a good man, a good example to people in the world.
Can I throw one last thing in here?
Of course.
So I heard this on my way home yesterday on a podcast, and it really just stood out. And then our talk just now for the last hour or so, where we talked about kind of our the early stages of the suspendables and how we got here. That the podcast was about the Navy SEALs versus Biden and their fight with the COVID vaccine mandate. In the podcast, they started with this passage from Isaiah 42. Now, I don't have this one memorized. I had to pull it up. But the first couple verses say, and the section is titled, "The Lord's Chosen Servant." And it says, "Behold, my servant whom I uphold, my chosen in whom my soul delights. I have put my spirit upon him. He will bring forth justice to the nations. He will not cry aloud or lift up his voice or make it heard in the street. A bruised reed he will not break, and a faintly burning wick he will not quench. He will faithfully bring forth justice. He will not grow faint or be discouraged till he has established justice in the earth, and the coastlands wait for his law."
There it is. Yeah, it's a good feeling to know that there actually is a code book for all of this. Much to Joe Rogan's chagrin, which we talked about, and I got a copyright infringement on.
Gosh.
Yeah, there is. Guys, if you're going to the-suspendables.com, you can use promo code Kyle. That will save you 10%. This is Garret O'Boyle, man, the myth, the legend. That's actually his wife's company. Isn't that correct, Garret? Just in case anybody thought otherwise. That's actually, that is Mrs. O'Boyle's position. But you're obviously a helper in it. My man, thanks so much for joining me. I'm going to shut this sucker down. We're going to say thanks to all of you for joining us. We are streaming live from Liberty Hill, Texas. 0930s on weekdays. We're going into the weekend here, so I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. Please make sure that you are following the show, and if you are following it anywhere other than rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin, you may soon not find us. It may disappear quite soon. So we're going to probably shut down the YouTube. I don't want to support YouTube, is what I realized. I don't want to be found on YouTube because I don't like YouTube. I don't like what they do. I don't like what they're about, and I don't support things that I'm not about. So that's coming to a close. We've shared our with an audience out there, but we are going to be discontinuing that very, very shortly. So next couple days, start migrating over to rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. Make sure you've given us a like if you were in the live chat. I saw a lot of new faces and new names out there. We really do appreciate you guys participating. I can't always integrate what it is that you guys are saying on the chat in my mind as I'm speaking to you, but I do sometimes. So you guys know I do actually scan that pretty frequently, and we're really grateful for it. Leave us a 5-star review, and if you do, then we can read them on the show. Here is one right now coming in. Oh, can I get it? Maybe not. Maybe I can't get this. Give me 1 second. I just threw it on the screen. This is what happens when we don't have our producer Ryan sitting here. This one I knew comes from a familiar voice. This comes from TP Kansu. It says, Kyle has a great show as always, although of all the content presented, enlightens and makes me think about our two-tier justice system. Friendly Fridays are the best. What a good one for a Friday, right? Filled with humor and yet again proves the unjust system which we face. Keep up the informative content with Steve and Garrett. There you go. And keep exposing the hypocrisy of the DOJ. By the way, you need to update your outbound content. It states that your show is Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. LOL. I just listened to the thing that we put out there. I don't think it says that, but if TP Canso, you can find me at KyleSerafin.com. You can send me the contact. Tell me where you're finding the Monday, Wednesday, and Friday thing. I think I'm doing it the correct way, but if I'm not, I want to make sure that I update it and I correct it. If you guys are hearing that we are not the number of days a week that we are, then we should fix that. Anyway, folks, follow us on iHeart, follow us on Spotify, follow us on Apple, share this stuff with your friends, leave us a 5-star review, the show notes, and we look forward to seeing you after the weekend. I hope you guys have a blessed, a safe, and a productive weekend. We will catch you after the break.
Thanks for listening to The Kyle Seraphin Show, streamed live weekdays on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. Follow Kyle on Twitter, Truth Social, and Instagram at Kyle Seraphin.